What if I told you in the 1950s, queer people in California figured out how to build bars that couldn't be rated in locations that couldn't be found on any maps, and they were using a communication system that the FBI couldn't crack, and that the whole strategy boiled down to 4 words: move to ungovernable terrain. Hi there, I'm Chris with a K, and welcome back to This Week in Queer History, where we uncover strategies and tactics from queer history that we can use today. Today's strategy is called terrain displacement. So here's the idea. When hostile power controls every official space you could gather in, you don't fight for a seat at their table. You move the entire operation to territory that they literally cannot reach. In the 1950s, queer Californians did exactly that. They relocated their social lives from city bars to forest clearings in the California redwoods. And in 2026, with queer spaces getting shut down across the country, this playbook is more relevant than it's been in decades.
This week in queer history, stories told with love and glee.
Between 1947 and the late 1950s, the United States government fired more than 5,000 federal employees for being gay. Not suspected communists, gay people. The Lavender Scare, as historian David K. Johnson later named it, was the largest targeted purge of queer Americans in the 20th century. And it didn't stop at government jobs. In San Francisco, the police vice squad conducted regular raids on gay bars. California's Alcoholic Beverage Control Board revoked liquor licenses from any bar caught serving sexual perverts. Between 1955 and 1961, at least 14 San Francisco bars lost their licenses for the crime of having gay customers. If you were in the bar when the cops came through, your name went into the newspaper. Monday morning, you lost your job. Tuesday, your apartment. And by Wednesday, your family might not even answer your phone call. At that time, if you went out on a Friday night, it could destroy your entire life by Monday. And that's not abstract history. That feeling of watching the spaces where you feel safe get dismantled one by one, a lot of us know exactly what that feels like right now. So all of this was happening, but queer people, they did something about it. They looked at the situation and made a calculation that was either brilliant or desperate, and probably a little bit of both. Just 75 miles north of San Francisco, tucked into the fog-wrapped canyons of Sonoma County, the Russian River Valley wound through groves of old coast redwoods. The town of Guerneville sat at its center, a small logging and resort community where the nearest sheriff's office was stretched too thin across miles of rural roads. And city police, they had zero jurisdiction. And state park rangers were just looking for campfire violations, not homosexuals. The forest was, in all terms, outside the surveillance state's zone of control. And queer San Francisco, they found it. The information traveled through trust networks that functioned like an analog encryption system. In the city, certain bars served as information nodes. The Black Cat Cafe on Montgomery Street, Mona's 440 Club on Broadway. You'd hear someone mention the river. And if you asked the right questions, quietly, to the right person, you got the directions. And if you asked the wrong way, you got nothing. And once you had directions, you drove 2 hours north on a Friday night after work. You parked a mile away on a logging road where your car wouldn't be noticed. You followed the trail until you found the signal, a kerosene lamp hung from a low redwood branch, a bandana tied to a specific tree, river stones stacked in a pattern that meant gathering tonight, quarter-mile north. The signals changed every week. You have to stop for a moment and think about this because there were no apps, no addresses, no flyers, just a lamp in a tree and the knowledge of what that meant. And the clearing itself was something remarkable. Someone had pushed aside fallen branches to make a dance floor on the redwood duff. Battery-powered record players pushed Billie Holiday and Judy Garland through the coastal fog. Kerosene lanterns hung from branches created pools of warm light that the massive trunks absorbed before it could travel too far. Beer arrived in coolers that had been buried in the forest floor earlier in the day so that nobody had to walk through the state park carrying obvious party supplies. And these were not wild parties, they were just people being people, dancing, holding hands, talking about their work week, doing exactly what straight people did at any bar across America. But the radical thing was that they were existing there at all. The famous Colonel Armstrong tree, which is the oldest redwood in the nearby reserve, it's over 1,400 years old. And standing under those trees that had witnessed so many thousands of years of human existence, and the Vice Squad, it seemed so very distant and so very small. And the forest itself provided security that no city bar could match. A trail through old-growth redwoods takes about 20 minutes to walk, and that 20-minute buffer was an early warning system. Designated watchers near the trailhead would send a signal, an owl call or a whistle, and when everyone heard the warning, the gathering just dissolved. Record player off, lanterns out, and people would scatter on paths that experienced hikers knew and the casual law enforcement wouldn't follow. The coolers could be left behind, anonymous, no names, just gear. By the time anyone reached the clearing, it was dark, quiet, and empty. And this was for both men and women. But the women who came to these clearings brought organizing skills from labor movements and civil rights work. They often managed the logistics, supply coordination, signal systems, watcher rotations. Many of these same women would go on to build the infrastructure of the Daughters of Bilitis, the first lesbian civil rights organization in the country, founded in San Francisco in 1955 by Del Martin and Phyllis Lyon. The organizational capacity developed in those forest clearings became the foundation of a political movement. And by the 1950s, the community had grown enough to support actual businesses. Resort owners, some queer themselves, began quietly welcoming gay guests. The word spread through the same trusted network built in the forest clearing years. And within a season or two, a string of cabin resorts along the river had predominantly queer clientele. The clearing culture and the resort culture ran in parallel for years, until the Russian River became one of the most significant queer destinations in the United States. The forest clearings were the initial seeds, and the resorts and cabins, they were the majestic trees that would follow. So why did terrain displacement succeed where fighting for urban bar spaces kept failing? Well, first, it exploited a capacity mismatch. So what does that mean? Well, the Lavender Scare's enforcement apparatus was built for cities. It needed fixed addresses, liquor licenses, employee lists, guest registers. A forest clearing has none of that. You cannot revoke the liquor license of a redwood forest or a grove. You can't raid an address that doesn't exist. The entire enforcement infrastructure became useless the moment the gathering moved outside its jurisdiction. And then it leveraged economic alignment. Guerneville's economy depended on tourist dollars from San Francisco. Resort owners couldn't afford to turn away reliable, discreet, relatively affluent guests who came back every weekend. This wasn't ideological solidarity, it was commercial interest functioning as a protective buffer. The queer visitors got sanctuary and the resort owners got business. Nobody had reason to call attention to the arrangement. Again, economics. Third, and this is a really important part that historians usually skipped, it replaced fear with joy as the organizing emotion. A city bar gathering carried constant anxiety about raids, but a forest clearing under a redwood canopy with music drifting through the fog and the sound of the river nearby, that felt genuinely free. People came back not because resistance required them to, but because the experience was worth having. Communities built on joy are more durable than communities built on fear. That's not poetry, that is truth. And the system had no single point of failure. If one clearing became known, others existed. If one resort owner got nervous, another was ready. The network was distributed, portable, and self-healing. But as I was doing all of this, it reminds me that the people who built the system never got the credit for it. It was all secret, it was a group, it was community, and they were too busy surviving. So let's make sure that people keeping this work alive today get the credit. So a huge thank you to our members. Your support makes it possible for me to keep digging through archives and sharing the queer history that inspires us. If you'd like to join them, there's a link in the description. And if membership isn't in your budget right now, subscribing and leaving a positive review helps more than you know. Most of all, thank you for being here. And what happened in Guerneville is so important, especially right now. As I watch what's happening in 2026 with book bans, drag bans, diversity offices shutting down, federal workers investigated for attending trainings, and I see the same pattern for the Lavender Scare being used today. They're trying to make queer life invisible by eliminating the sanctioned spaces where we gather and work. And my first instinct when I see that, the same instinct that most of us have, is to shrink, to go quiet, to wait it out. But the Russian River story tells me that's exactly backwards. The people who survived the Lavender Scare didn't wait for permission to exist. They moved the party to the woods. They said, "You took our bars? Fine, we will build new ones where you can't find them, and we will continue to dance." And this makes me think about the work that I'm doing with this channel. YouTube could change its algorithm tomorrow, and it does play with the algorithm all the time. Social media could suppress queer content. There are shadow bans that happen that we don't even know, words, phrases. But the connections that I'm building through this channel, and through the email list, that's a trust network, and it's dependent on you and me, and that's the whole point. So here is our playbook, 5 things that we can do this week. We need to find our forests, which means we need to find our physical spaces that are outside of the algorithms and the easily surveyed environments or commercial venues. We have to find our community centers, our friend's backyard, a park pavilion, somewhere that can't be shut down by a single legal action or a policy change. We need to build trust networks and not on platforms. A public group chat is an address that can be monitored. A chain of personal relationships is not. Text 3 people tonight, set a date to meet in person this month. That's how the clearing culture started, one trusted invitation at a time. You need to carry your own equipment. The clearing culture was all self-sufficient. They had battery-powered players, buried their coolers, portable lanterns, nothing to seize. In 2026, that means own your own email list. Don't build your entire community on someone else's platform. Have a backup of your critical communication channels. Know your friends' emails. Make it so that you can spread information quickly and easily. Any community infrastructure that can't survive losing one of its really important people or nodes, it's too fragile. The forest gathering never depended on a single clearing or a single organizer or a single resort. They built redundancy. Make sure 3 people, not 1, know how to organize the next gathering that you have. Number 5, keep the joy central. This is the most important one. The forest bars worked because people genuinely wanted to be there. The music, the dancing, the laughter, that wasn't decoration on top of resistance. It was the resistance. Whatever space you build, make it worth showing up. Joy. I want to hear from you. What's your version of terrain displacement? Where have you moved the gathering when the official spaces got taken away? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if you want to stay connected with me and this work, the best way is to join the email list. You'll get free queer history downloads, early word on upcoming episodes, and invitations to community moments as we grow this together. The sign-up link is in the description. Until next time, stay strong, stay bold, and keep making history.